Kathy will introduce our speaker.
Well, we're so excited to have our special guest tonight and all of you in attendance, and I know you're going to really enjoy this program. I'd like to introduce Najada Davis, who's a media producer, filmmaker, and photographer, and he's a small business owner. He owns Royalty in the Making production company in Cleveland, Ohio. He's an alumni of Cleveland State University, and he's here to share an amazing story about a pair of kestrels that took up residence on a building in Cleveland's busy West Side Market. I first heard him speak on the ABA podcast and was so enthralled. I let the Bird Chat team know we need to have him on our Bird Chat. And he was gracious enough to accept our invitation. So let him start now. Najada Davis and Kestrels in the Hood.
Welcome to the show. This is Kestrels in the Hood, right? And basically what we want to do here today is we want to share the story of basically what happened a couple years ago. I guess it was 2019, and it was like the spring, and some kestrels nested in a building, and I had the opportunity to document that. So yeah, that's why I'm here. And that's I'm just kind of like a regular guy from the city, and I had a camera, and I just want to share my story with other people who happen to be observing these creatures in their daily life.
So, Najada, how did you first learn about these kestrels?
Let's see. It had to be when I talked to a friend of mine, this guy named Walt Gaychuk. I used to teach him how to edit, and we had like little lessons. He wanted to edit some videos for his family, and a couple years went by. We talked every now and then I graduated from Cleveland State University, and I just hit him up because I was excited, and I was like, dude, Walt will be excited for me because he kind of knows what I was going through. And I hit him up and was like, hey, I graduated. And then he just texted back and said, hey, man, I got a project for you. Can you help me record? Like, we have a Nest Cam. There's some, we have kestrels, right? We have falcons nesting. And he's like, we have an Nest Cam. Can you record this for me? And I was like, yeah, dude, I know how to capture footage like that. And I basically just captured it right off of YouTube. And then because the incident was just so cool, right? It was like, I went down there, we're all like looking like, where's the mom? Oh, she's bringing food. And of course, naturally, I would bring my camera. And I'm not much of a photographer, right? So I started taking video. And that's kind of how it all started. We ended up getting some cool perspectives on the roof. And because he was the head of this, the construction, he was the superintendent of the construction that was happening. So we were able to have like access to the roof and really kind of get close and get a better vantage point than being on the ground. So that's kind of how it all started.
Right. So, had you ever heard of kestrels before this? Had you ever paid attention to them before this project?
No. No, ma'am, not at all. No, I was I guess you could say I grew up in the metro parks with a program called Youth Outdoors, and that was with like Cleveland Metro Parks and 4-H. A lot of people probably know about 4-H. I think they're kind of like this nationwide, if not like a worldwide thing. So they would have us hiking and biking, and we learned about sustainability and all different types of stuff. And so I was pretty familiar with, I used to want to be a veterinarian and all these things. So I was pretty familiar with, wildlife, but to be really specific as to what I was looking at, no, I had no idea what I was looking. I was like, oh, is that a falcon? I was like, it's really kind of small. So yeah, I learned a lot. I learned a lot through that time, especially with a lot of the enthusiasts kind of showing up, people from like the Audubon and other birders would come, and they would just kind of share their knowledge. So I was just kind of soaking it all up at the time.
I do want to mention at this point for those participants, there's a chat down at the bottom of your screen. And if you have questions, you can type them in there. We'll be paying attention to those too. You're more than welcome to ask questions. And we have a lot more video that you're going to get to see. So when did like the people of that area of Cleveland start knowing about this unusual visitors that were up on this building?
So the Kestrels were on a live stream cam, and that was on YouTube. So there was also a website. Walt had kind of built worked with some people on kind of building a website for it, and it was called Ohio City Kestrels. And there was a little bit of buzz, not a whole lot, but some people just happened to kind of pop up and find birds of prey nest cam footage, and ours was one of them. And then so that was kind of like how that happened. And some people around the area would kind of happen upon, they'd see people out there with binoculars and then ask like, what's going on, what are you looking at? And I'd be out there with the camera. I ran into multiple people like, what are you doing, man? What are you looking at, man? I'm like, you don't see that right there, man? Check this out. And they're like, what? Oh, wow. And they're like, yeah, that's a falcon, bro. And they're like, whoa, a falcon? Yeah. So that's kind of how everybody started to get to know about it. It was a little website. And some people really got into it, right? Some people really got into watching the babies, because it was like really, really, and later on I'll show you the nest cam footage and kind of how it looked, but it'll be very sped up. But there was like 28 days of the babies eating and just sleeping and feathers blowing in the wind. So a lot of it was very uninteresting, but some of it was very interesting. Just the fact that you could see them was interesting. But after that, you were like, all right, guys, like, they don't move. They just sit there and huddle and wait till food comes. And then that's when it was exciting. So.
All right, I do have a question from Julie, and she said, did this experience change you into being curious about other species of birds besides kestrels?
I definitely think so. I think it made me more curious as to, like, there was the peregrine falcons that nest, they're known to nest in Cleveland and different parts. And so it was interesting to know that there were these dynamic birds of prey living out their lives, and attacking pigeons and eating sparrows, and all this stuff is happening around you. Like, whoa, I had no idea. There was like a nest near the zoo for the peregrines, and that it was just really, really interesting. So I definitely am interested in getting out more and taking my camera and seeing like, how can I do more documentation of more areas like around me, right? Not so much like, hey, like, oh, I want to go around the world. I need to go to Egypt to see things I can't see. It's like, no, there's a lot of things that you don't recognize that are happening around you every day that you can appreciate.
Absolutely. Good point. So let's see. Some of these questions I'm going to save for later. Okay.
Okay.
Let's see. So do you think that, well, maybe we'll save that for later too. So who was a person, or was it, how were the kestrels discovered?
So the kestrels were discovered by the people working on the roof, technically. So they were like, we're seeing, was there somebody? Is that, I'll just keep going.
Yeah, keep
So
going. I got it.
there's so the people on the roof were there, and they were making some noise, and like these birds would just like shoot out, and whoa. And then they would start like dive bombing and attacking the workers. And so they called Walt, and Walt was like trying, I guess he might have taken a quick photo of what he saw. And he knew, I guess, a little bit about birds for just being, I guess, interested. And he was like, I'm thinking it's, he knew what it looked like. He thought it might have been a kestrel, but he wasn't sure. And so he started calling around at like different organizations like ODNR and stuff, and they, which is the Ohio Department of Natural Resources, right? So they started getting in contact with him and showed him some photos and was like, is it this, is that? And he's like, it's definitely that. And they're like, I don't think so. Like, kestrels aren't nesting right now. I don't think that's really a thing. And he's like, no, that's definitely what I saw. And they had people come out and look, and they were like, oh, there's no nest. And then they were like, just, cover up the hole, man. And, it'll be all right. And so they covered up the hole, but the mom and dad were still like coming and like trying to get in. And the workers were all distressed. They were like, there's got to be something down there, man. They're bringing food. They're bringing food. And then the hole's blocked. So they brought ODNR people in, and they actually like took a mirror up into the nest. And then that's when they found these eggs. I'm not sure if the eggs had hatched already by that time, but they definitely saw the eggs. They uncovered the hole, and then Walt was like, they're not like shutting it down, but he's like, we're gonna redo the schedule, we're gonna rework it, and we're gonna work around it, because he wasn't trying to be the one who said, let's let the eggs die and they'll nest somewhere else, that kind of thing. So then that's when he put the nest cam up, and by the time he got the camera up, the babies had already hatched. And then that's when I came in, started recording the nest cam, and it kind of went from there.
So I know you answered on the chat, but just in case not everyone looks at the chat, what was the main food source that you saw them eating?
So the main food source was definitely the house sparrow. Sadly, yeah, they would take the heads off, and so yeah, they take the heads off and fly in, and it wasn't pretty, but that's what they were eating.
It's okay, they're not native. That's all right. And let's see, someone else asked, hang on, did they all the chicks make it to maturity?
They actually they did. Spoiler alert, right? They all made it, and that was a big help from Walt and the team being the big supporters, right? Like the boots on the ground, literally boots on the ground. The people, if we weren't there, they probably would have got hit by cars, run over by people, bikes, all types of stuff. So we were like the catalyst to making sure that they got back on the roof into safety.
Right. So did you notice, like when you were filming, did people often go there just to see the birds, like take time out of their day just to go watch? Did you notice that?
So there was a guy named Larry. I think it was Larry Wilson. I think it's his last name. It's kind of slipping my mind right now. But and then there's Chris and Chad Saladin, who are the peregrine enthusiasts in the city, and they were the ones that were kind of like always there. Chris and Chad would be walking around on days that I wouldn't be there, but they would come and visit the Kestrel nest when, like in between their route, which they do pretty much, I think, any day that they can, almost every day a week. They would go to the nest of the peregrines, and then they would kind of stop by the Kestrel site. And sometimes we would be there, and sometimes we'd kind of go up to the roof and check things out. But we were the ones that were pretty much there all the time. And then there were probably people who came and stopped to look, but it wasn't that many. I don't think,
Okay.
especially after they left the nest,
Right.
it
So,
was kind of like, oh, people were sad. They were like, oh, they're gone. Kind of go back to living life. But then like the story didn't stop there.
spoiler alert.
Yeah, right.
Okay. So Jan had asked, did they relocate the fledglings? But it sounded like they were able to complete their whole cycle right there, correct?
Right there, right above the nest, there was the billboard that is kind of like a staple in the story. The bill, they would transfer the food. Mom and dad would meet, and dad would fly in, give her the food, and then she would fly down and into the nest, and then that would continue after they left the nest. Oh, and there was a certain point in period, I think you might have been able to see it too, that she stopped going into the nest to feed them, and I think maybe had been calling from outside of the nest, and then that's kind of like what was drawing them out. They're like, oh man, like we ain't getting no food unless we leave. We gotta go. And we believe like the oldest was the one that left first, and the youngest left last. The one that was more like on the weaker end, and we also believe it was a boy, and we believe he was the youngest, and also the last to really be the strongest to fly. So a lot he would be on the billboard a lot, like not really going too many places, while everybody else was kind of doing their thing, flying from ledge to ledge, building to building. Once they got strong enough, they would fly from rooftop to rooftop, real close by, kind of basically just crossing the street. And we would always be like nervous. Uh, but they got stronger and stronger. Every time they flew, they would fly probably, uh, I don't know, maybe every 15 minutes or so, maybe every 20, who knows. But they would just sit there for a while, and then it could have been every half hour, really, uh, that they might, flutter to another spot. I think they were just regaining their energy. And mom would come down with food, and she would find all of them wherever they were and drop the food there, and then they would eat. So there was a lot, and they were spread out. So the one would be on this building over here, and then there'd be two huddled next to each other, and so she had to find them all and feed them.
Wow. Now,
Hmm.
this might not be the right time and you can save the question, but Dara wanted to know about your camera and sound setup.
Oh, that's so I didn't really have much of a sound setup. I wasn't even thinking about sound at the time. I wasn't even thinking about making a documentary at the time. I was just I just had a camera. I was like, this is cool. So I have a GH. I think I was working with my GH4 because I don't think I had a GH5 at the time, but now I have a Panasonic GH5. But I was working with the GH4, and I had some manual lenses in the beginning, like cinema lenses, because I just do mostly video work. So autofocus was not a thing, and these guys were flying really fast, and so I had like an 85 millimeter. If anybody knows anything about photography, I'm just gonna do this real quick. So I had an 85 millimeter lens, and it was a prime, and the GH4 doesn't have internal body stabilization, neither does the lens, so it was just hella shaky the whole time, just 85 millimeters, and they're like way far away, so you still can't see. So eventually, I told Walt, I was like, man, we're gonna be getting some good stuff, but I asked him for some help to possibly rent a better lens, because he was like, "Oh man, like the footage." And I was like, if we want better footage, bro, we need a better lens." And so we went out and got a better lens, and the footage just immediately got better. I had internal body stabilization. I think it was a Leica 50 to 200. So on my camera, it was actually 100 millimeters to 400 millimeters, which really gave us a lot more range. And in the next video, you'll see the shots that you kind of, I don't know how many shots are in there with the old lens, but you'll definitely see the difference between how we were kind of running around while they were on the ground, and then things were kind of shaky, as opposed to when they're in the air and things get a lot smoother. I started shooting things in slow motion. So, but the audio was just through the camera and was kind of an afterthought in that moment.
Okay. So Rich wanted to know if did they ban the peregrine? I'm sorry, the kestrels. Did they ban them?
No, the Kestrels were not banded. They tried. They had a guy come up. I don't know who it was. I don't know if it was. I don't know if Larry was the. I think Larry, because Larry is the Kestrel guy at the Black River Audubon. So not sure if he was the one that was trying to ban them, but he couldn't reach. They couldn't reach him. Walt tried to reach him. They were so far tucked into the back of that soffit in the roof that you just couldn't get your hand in there, and they were all like huddled back against the wall, like, "Oh, look at his hand coming in. What is that?" So they were terrified, and they stayed away. And then on top of that, mom was stressed out because she be dive bombing. I'm like, "Get your hand out my nest," that kind of stuff. So they decided not to go through with it. They could have banned it while they. I think he probably grabbed. Walt probably grabbed each of the babies at least once. So we had a chance, but it just never worked out.
Okay. And related to that, Jan wanted to know about the bags that we saw in the video. What was that about?
Oh, the paper bag.
Yeah, yeah.
The paper bag was the technique we used to get them back into the nest. So there was the first one that dropped, I believe. Right, that was the one he kind of fell down. And Walt was like, I think it was the youngin. I think I don't know. So we think that was the one. He was like, let's just put him back in the nest. And I was like, well, let's just take him back to the roof, man. I don't know. We should put him. He's like, no, he's not ready. He's not ready. And he like built it like a net underneath the nest too that we think really helped because a lot of them jumped out and fell right into the net that he had, like was the safety net, and then they would kind of climb up, and then look when they got a little bit more strength, they would fly away. But so he had to take this lift up to back to the nest, and it was like one of those sky lifts that you see on the construction sites. And it just took a really long time to go get the lift and drive around. So he's like, dude, I need time. I can't be holding on to this to the falcon while I'm doing this. And they're like, put him in a paper bag. And so that's, I guess, just because it calmed them down. They couldn't really see what was going on. And yeah, that's pretty much what that was about.
Okay. And this might come later, so we can save it. But Bobby wanted to know, was this the only season that they were there?
This was, we believe, well, we don't know. I think this just that's the, that's it right there. We don't know. This was just the time that they came into contact with, like, direct contact, uh, and we happened to be there for this nesting and for the I guess to be like the saviors for real, because they were just in a really weird environment. But then the next season, they actually we had the Kestrels come back, and they'll be kind of, you'll probably see it. We put up a box, and it was a Kestrel box, and it was to replace the old nest because they covered it up and did everything. Boom, put the box up. So they came back, and that was interesting. They only came back for a little bit though. But hey, they're probably still around in the neighborhood. Just found somewhere else to nest.
Okay. And Anne wanted to know about, did you witness any interactions between the kestrels and the peregrines that live there?
No, the other interactions with birds were, I think, seagulls. They mom and dad would fight off seagulls, especially when the babies kind of came out and they were just huddled up on the roof. They were like defenseless. So you started seeing seagulls hovering around and circling, And so they didn't like that. So mom would be like diving, and they'd be doing the I think they call it kiting when they flap the wings,
Mhm.
and then they dive down. I didn't get too much of that on tape, but that was something that you would see, and you get scared as soon as you see it. They're like hovering, dive. Like, so yeah.
Nice. And Christina wanted to know, or Christiana, sorry, have you recorded sightings of any other animals since then?
Sightings, no. I think I've done some work with the Western Reserve Land Conservancy, and that work has basically been more of a commercial style videography take on things. But I'll go out and document a plot of land or a park or something, that like a reserved piece of land, and we'll maybe do like a piece on the history of that land, and then I'll kind of document the biodiversity in a way. So I'll talk to the experts, and then they'll like point out the flowers and the trees, and I'll be like, all right, cool, 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 that's good. And then I'll cut together good pieces. So the in between there, we'll see like turtles and birds, all types, and I'll try and catch what I can. So I'm trying to get better at that, and in the meantime, as I'm getting better at that, I'll probably be trying to, I don't know, maybe I'll just keep my ears open for, if somebody else sees something, they're like, hey man, come capture this. I'll probably be on it, just book it. Like, oh, I'm there, man. There.
It's kind of a new type of citizen science, recording things that people see in the urban areas.
I try to tell people that too. I said, man, birding is something that's a little bit foreign to me, and probably foreign to like a ton of other people. But this experience really kind of showed me how important the community of birders really is in understanding the ecosystem, right? Understanding like the world and how things work, because they're out there monitoring the birds and their migratory paths, and if the numbers start to dwindle, we can kind of see like, hey, where does this bird usually nest? Like, where they usually go, what's happening, what's changing in the environment to where like these numbers are dwindling, or numbers are kind of coming back. And we got people out there counting them, and that stuff is really important. So I think being able to document that and having the ability to cut together uh, a compelling story that keeps people captivated, can really start to share the knowledge that you guys might already have with the rest of the world.
Right. And Bobby says, yeah, this is how birding starts. You see a bird and you want to know more. And she's absolutely right.
Right.
Kind of captured that. Yeah. So what things did you learn, like when you were observing these birds, that you just really surprised you?
I think one thing was the American Kestrel falcon is the smallest falcon, right?
Yeah.
And it was like right here in Ohio. So also while we were doing this, we we learned that the peregrine, right? We might not have learned everything about the kestrel, but the peregrine falcon, I think, was like the fastest animal in the world,
Mhm.
fastest recorded speeds, right? So I was like, wow, yeah, that's how powerful that uh, you know the it is as a raptor, right? It's just like boom, taking its prey out, like it's knocking them dead. I don't even know what are they going like 100 and something,
I think it's like 200.
200 and something miles per
Yeah.
hour. Yeah, that's crazy to me. So, but I guess the Kestrels were, I don't know, in some sort of competition. I guess Chris Saladin, she was like, "There's no way I'm ever gonna like change my love of within the Raptor family from the Peregrines to the Kestrels." She's like, "Yeah, the Peregrines trumped them every day, but Kestrels are nice. They're so pretty," that kind of thing. But I learned a lot. Uh, it's been a while since I kind of talked about it, but we learned about maybe like gestation periods and how long it might take from the eggs to because everybody was trying to do the math as to like when they laid the eggs. It was kind of out of the season, so this was a kind of an anomaly in a way. It wasn't really supposed to happen. They were nesting in an area that was just not common. They were nesting too early in the season. It was just totally wrong what was happening. And so that's, I feel like, why this was so interesting.
They didn't read the book. But that's the way
Not at
nature is.
all.
Not at
Not
all.
at all.
Not
So,
at
but then
all.
because we were rebels, right? And Walt was like using his gut. It's like, no, we don't have to play by the book all the time. There's definitely something in, there's got to be a nest. And so after
Yeah,
that,
that's great that they really took ownership of that whole situation. Cindy asked, you mentioned one of the babies was a boy. How did you figure that out?
so that's another thing we learned because we had no idea what we were doing, but because the video was in black and white in the nest. Once they came out, we were able to see because we studied the mom and the dad, and we knew that, of course, like when we're looking at birds, the male is usually more colorful. So the male would have like blue feathers, very kind of a dark, not so much like really dark, but has a vibrant blue, but a little bit on the darker side. And then the chest feathers would also have like they would have dots, like he was polka dotted on the chest. So blue on the back, polka dots on the chest. And then the mom was more of a brown, and then like all the females would have like these little stripes. They weren't polka dots, they were kind of like almost like little smears. And so when the babies were starting to mature, you really got to see like the colors kind of come out, and you a little bit early on you started seeing the dots and the stripes. So by the time they came out, we were like boom boom boom, oh that's a female, that's a male, boom boom. So
Very cool.
mhm.
I have a couple more questions.
Mhm.
Let's see. Mo asked, did the chicks hunt or bring back food to the nest?
We did not get to see any of that. By the time we think they started hunting, they were already so far away from us that we would have to like hunt them down. That's pretty much like they were on this church like 4 or 5 blocks away, and we could kind of see them, but by that they just kept getting further and further away from the nest. And we think that's when they started to kind of do more training and hunting and learning how to live on their own.
Okay. And Chris wanted to know, with the adults, did they catch the sparrows on the ground or did they catch them in the air?
I don't think we ever saw. We would see the mom maybe catch like a dragonfly out of the air, that kind of thing. But we don't. I don't think we ever saw them attack and catch the like a sparrow. That would have been cool.
Yeah.
But I think that they're known for catching them out of the air too. Just being catching them off guard, being above them, being bam, hit them right in the back. Oh,
Right. And that's the cool thing about watching birds, and I know now after watching your clips, I really want to go out and find some kestrels to observe because just watching behavior is really, really an interesting thing to do. You learn a lot.
right, right. I think I had the most enjoyment because I just felt like I was part of like National Geographic, and I was like waiting for the right moment. And you just felt the wind blowing across you. You're on the roof waiting for mom to come back, or you're watching mom, and you're watching these small, like you said, the behaviors, right? Like the body language. Um, so you kind of knew when they were gonna take off, or you might see dad come in because you really didn't see him that often. Might maybe like way far away, but then you kind of see him come in with the food, and you're like, oh, this is when it's gonna take place. So a lot of things, it was good that it was a lot of repetition, because I was able to kind of track the motions and then anticipate where to look, because they were so fast. That's why I had to shoot slow motion. But they was just so fast that you it was you if you missed it, you're gone. They were gone. It's like, oh, there's dad. Oh, he dropped off the food. He's gone right quick. So I had to already be in frame and ready to go.
Right. Okay. And what about the response to your film? It's been out for like a little while, right?
Right.
So how's the response been to your film?
So anybody who really sees the film is just, I guess, amazed, maybe, that it's such like a touching story. We really documented the whole, pretty much from the beginning to the end, and everybody's take on it was just like, wow, like this is, I wish I was a part of that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it's happening right here in the heart of town. Like I feel like it's something where people come together, and it's something you only hear about. So it's something that people wish they could live, and where they run into somebody random and they just say, hey, how you doing, man? And they become really good friends because they were a part of uh, this moment that was just, I guess we would say, like a fleeting moment.
Mm-hmm.
It comes in and it's gone. And if you blink, you miss the whole thing. So I'm glad that I took advantage of going out on like a Saturday after work and saying, I'm just gonna go downtown. I'm gonna go down to Ohio City. I'm gonna see what I can see, because we may never get that chance to do it again.
Exactly. That's well put. That's the way it happens in nature. It just, when the experience happens, you just not need to just take the whole thing in. Exactly. So did anyone have any other questions that we haven't covered? You can put them in the chat, or you could even unmute yourself and say them if you want to. I know we're getting lots of wonderful comments on how much everyone enjoyed your presentation, and hope that you have more experiences that you can share with others.
Right. I'm really interested in being able to take this around and maybe turn it into a like a teaching tool, right? Just it kind of gets me in the door with, especially with like the Audubon Society and different chapters, and if I could take it around the world, I would, and turn it into something to where I can keep going, right? I can find more stories to tell. So that's kind of that's a passion of mine, and to bring it into the world of, like, into the natural world, uh, documenting wildlife. I think that's really cool, because uh, that's definitely a world that we're not always used to. We're used to dealing with people.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people deal with people, and a lot of us don't like dealing with people. And if we can learn more about the animals that we're interested in, like, that's, yeah, I don't know. It's just icing on the cake.
Yes, that absolutely. A couple people asked about if it's available on YouTube and the name.
It's not. It would be probably like under Kestrels in the Hood. You could probably just follow me on social media. It's Najada Davis, right? It's Najada Davis, and I plan on finding a way to pretty much like post it, or I don't know, make DVDs to send out to people. There's just when once you put something online, there's a lot of, because it was a free project, and a lot of people kind of gave us permission to do it for free. And sometimes when things get online, things get misconstrued, things want to get monetized. People think you're trying to make money off of this stuff, and it's like, I just want people to enjoy it. So staying away from the internet is probably one of the easiest ways to do it at right now.
Okay, makes sense.
But if you follow me, you may get an update and be like, hey, it's available here on this website.
So there are people from around the country that may be in different Audubon chapters, and maybe they'd like to have you come so that's the way to find you, just on social media.
Right, yeah. You can email me at najadadavis.com. Not.com. That's my website, but najadadavis@gmail.com. You can get in contact with me there, and social media, that kind of stuff. And I'll be willing to bring it to different places, like a school, or we could talk about pretty much anything. We don't really necessarily have to make it all about the birds as much as we can make it about photography or video or anything else too. So I think it's really cool.
That sounds great. Yes. Right. Yep. So anyone else have any other questions? This has been just a wonderful time. Great video, and we just love your passion and just your enthusiasm to share. And I agree, Chris, that Najada could inspire other young people too, which is awesome. Just ignore my clock. Hang on.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Chris. I appreciate that. That's cool. I definitely am all about that, especially because when I was coming up I wasn't really doing photography. I kind of started getting into photography because it makes your stuff look better. And I started understanding lighting. So there's just so much that I didn't know that I know now, that I wish somebody would have just been like, hey man, like I'll help you out, or here's a tip. So I try to be that force of nature, force of knowledge.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. Yeah, maybe before we end, you could just put your email or whatever in the chat.
Right. Yeah, I'll definitely do that.
Or you guys can.
Or I'll do it for you. Najadadavis@gmail.com.
Yes. Yeah, and like I said, you can search me, you can Google my name, and I'll just pop up.
Yeah, it comes up because that's how I found you. Because they had a link in the ABA podcast, and that's how I found you.
Right. Yeah, I'm trying to get more into doing stuff like this where I'm doing stuff out in with wildlife and in nature, and then also maybe even like in sports. So like I said, I also do commercial stuff, and I do video work to make to break bread, right? That's how I make my money and pay rent, stuff like that. So this stuff is really cool, and if I could make money doing this one day, heck yeah. But right now, it's a passion. It keeps me going.
That's wonderful. Wonderful. We really, really appreciate your time and sharing with all of us from many different places. And I know, speaking for myself, I'm going to be looking for what amazing things are out there in nature, whether they're in my backyard or in the city or out in the field.
Right. And if you have any questions, if you want to learn about how to get in the video, or you can always reach out to me. A lot of times I'm pretty friendly. I do teach, but if you really want lessons, we can definitely work that out. But definitely, video is in the palm of your hand. Everybody's got a cell phone. Lots of people have cameras. Pictures are good, but video is, if you're doing it right, a video can just be sometimes a little bit better.
Okay. Well, it looks like we're at 8:04. So I think, I know it went by fast, didn't it, everybody?
Right.
It was just so amazing. And we look forward to more updates from you. And we know that you're going to be involved in some other great projects. And I'm sure some of them will involve the natural world, because you definitely have an interest and a passion for that.
Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome. You're welcome. Anyone else on the Bird Chat team have anything, last thing to say?
No, just thank you, Najada, very much. And thanks everybody for tuning in. It's been
very good. It was very good.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. So hopefully, if I come down to Florida, if I'm anywhere near Orlando, definitely I'm gonna reach out.
Definitely.
Right.
Definitely. We have places you can find some amazing nature stories.
We have good birds.
All year long.
Well,
Yes,
thanks, guys. I appreciate you.
we really appreciate you.
Okay.
Great presentation. Thank you.
Guys, later.
Night, everybody.
All right, good night, everybody.
Everybody.
Thanks for joining us.
Yes.